Good afternoon everyone, welcome back to the Nature Patch. My name is Robin and thank you so much for joining in on another video. Today I'm going to be sharing everything that I'm currently planting at the moment. So this is kind of going to be a sit down, what I plant for spring/summer video. In a subtropical climate where I am here in the Brisbane region, the delineation between spring and summer is not very large. We tend to get either a cool season and a hot season with not a really gradual increase in temperature. So it's really hard to kind of grow things specifically designed for spring or autumn here. In my mind, I'm generally either planting for a hot or a cold period of time. So over the past few days, I have been planting about 100 or over 100 different seeds. And I have so many different varieties of plants that I'll share with you. Around us at the moment, we're currently in lockdown here in Brisbane and everyone's at home, so everyone is busily doing things either in their garden or their homes. So we have a lot of construction noise, a random minor bird going off at the moment. So hopefully the directional mic isn't picking too much of that up, but I think I'm going to get started and share with you everything that I'm planting. I have a list here. I like to be prepared, but you know, my planting style and style of gardening in general is just really random. But this season I'm determined to be a little better at labeling a lot of my plants so I actually know what they are when I plant them, so that I can know what is going to be produced in that space and how large the plant gets, how much room I need. The first thing that you'll want to do if you're looking or thinking about what to plant right now is to understand your environment, which is what I talk about in a lot of my videos. Understanding your surroundings, your microclimate is super important to know what seeds you can plant right now. For me personally, where we live, we tend to get quite cool nights. We're a little bit further inland, but we get hotter days than people do right on the coast as well. So I need to think about not only is the plant going to suffer if it gets a little bit cool at night, definitely like below 10 degrees, and whether that plant can also withstand temperatures of going up to 30 degrees over the next month or so. So a lot of these plants might not be suited to your microclimate. It's just really trial and error, and you'll know your environment the best. You can also do things like check maps and different resources to see kind of what zone you're in as well. Just keep in mind that this is very different depending on what country you live. So definitely don't follow the zoning schedule of the USA if you live in Australia. There's different zones, but there are tools to kind of match up to see what kind of zone it is in Australia to how that is different in the US. Here in Southeast Queensland, it's classed as something like an 11 on the US scale. So quite warm, quite humid, and we grow all year round. So I'm going to start out by sharing a lot of the flowers that I'm growing. I'm actually going to be growing a lot more flowers than I have ever grown before, to be planted in kind of like a designated area for pollinators and flowers. So I'm growing this year a lot of different zinnias. Zinnias are one of my favourite flowers to grow just because they are so colourful and bright, and the pollinators absolutely love them. And I wanted to grow a lot of different colours of zinnias this year to kind of make some really nice cut flower bouquets. On the screen I will put up a little photo, or Scott will put up a little photo of what the flower is going to look like from these plants. The first one that I'm growing is the polar bear zinnia. This is a gorgeous white flower, and I don't really grow a lot of white flowers, but I think it's a really unique flower and something that kind of goes, it's a colour that goes with a lot of other colours. So that's the first one that I'm going to be growing. The next one is Cherry Queen zinnia. This is complete opposite, is a bright red colour, and I've never grown this one before. The seedlings of these are all starting to pop up. Zinnias are one of the fastest growing flowers that I have in my little collection here, so I'm really excited about that one. I'm also growing a bright green zinnia, which is called Envy. This one looks particularly interesting because you don't usually see green flowers. It's usually the foliage that is dominating that green colour, but this one is a green flower. And the other ones that I am growing peppermint stick, super cool, different colours. It's going to be kind of like a candy cane, red and yellow stripes. I'm also growing I have some more over here that I'm looking at. I'm growing a bright pink, I think it's called Bright Lights, but I'll try and link the name of it or put it on the screen, which is going to be a bright pink flower. I'm also going to be growing salmon rose, probably my favorite color, I think, out of all of these zinnias, because it's just really, really unique. It's not your kind of typical pink. It is a really nice dusty rose color. I also have a bunch of a mixed color zinnia that I saved from one of the other plants that I had. So in any spaces where these either kind of don't grow within the cut flower patch, I'll just plant some random mixed zinnias as well. Moving on to the next one, I'm growing some borage, which usually I would plant a little bit kind of earlier in the more cooler months, but I had completely forgotten that I actually had borage seeds. So I really want to grow this plant, and I'll probably put it in a little bit more of a protected area that gets a little bit of shade. Does really like the cooler weather, but I'm really hoping I can get some flowers off this to make some cocktails. It's got a really, really nice little purple star flower that tastes a lot like cucumber, and the bees and the pollinators really, really love this plant. The other main flower that I'm growing other than zinnias are going to be everlasting daisies, which are also one of my favorite flowers to grow because they dry really well and they grow really well in a subtropical climate. So if you've never tried growing everlasting daisies, or straw flowers they're also called, would highly recommend it. I'm growing kind of similar colors to a lot of zinnias. The first one that I have here is just a plain white everlasting daisy, which I think will go really nice and complement a lot of the other colors that I have in this mix. But possibly my favorite one that I have here, kind of similar to the salmon rose color, this is a copper red, and this one is an absolutely stunning flower. I have one that has germinated here so far, and I'm really hoping I get a few more. I put about 2 seeds in each of these little cells in here, so I'm hoping I'm going to get some more of this plant to put in the mix of all of my everlasting daisies. I'm also just growing a plain pink variety as well as a salmon variety, and like the zinnias, I have a mix as well of the straw flower or everlasting daisy. And then for the labels on this, I shared in an Instagram story or IGTV, whatever they're called, those things. I love to use the backs of soy milk bottles. So we drink soy milk, and I just cut these up. They're all those recyclable bottles, and rather than recycling them, I just cut them up and use them as labels because they are waterproof as well. And I find that the label doesn't really wash off too easily with these. Something I haven't tried to grow before is asters. This is, I think, a powder puff variety, and yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what this looks like. Apparently it grows kind of about to 1 meter, so it will take up a large area of space, but yeah, I've planted 6 cells. None of them have germinated yet. We'll see how this one goes. Oh, I can see one of my salvias has just popped up. This is a tricolor salvia, so I'm unsure what that means, but I think it's either got different colors on the flower stalk, or there's just a mix of different blue and pink salvias within this mix. But yeah, growing some salvias. I've just seen that my other salvias that I have planted in the ground are starting to come back. They didn't love the cold weather, so I kind of just let them go. Thought they were dead and gone, but they've actually brought out new shoots right now. So yeah, now's definitely a good time to get salvias in the ground if you'd like to grow these for spring. I'm also growing some dahlias, however you want to pronounce it. This is just a mix of these. First time growing some echinacea. These are, I've just really had a lot of trouble with these germinating. None of them have germinated yet, but hoping that they will, and so we can have some echinacea in the flower patch as well. Also got some tansies. I think these are either yellow or orange, and these are just going to provide some overall height and structure to kind of fluff up the flower patch a little bit wherever I have space. And I'm a little bit late to the game, but I have planted quite a few poppies as well. And I know poppies, you can plant them straight into the ground. You don't have to raise seedlings, but I haven't got that area prepared yet, so I'm a little bit behind. And I wanted to just plant these in the pots so that I know where I can plant them, where they will be, or else I'll probably forget and yeah, get a little confused. For this one here, these are I think they're the Californian orange poppy. I'll hopefully put the name on the screen, but yeah, hopefully these are going to do well in that area. They don't love the really harsh sun though, so I may have a little trouble, but we'll see how we go. And the other type of poppy that I'm growing, it's called just a ballerina mix. So I think this has a mixture of different pastel pinks and purples. Never grown poppies before, so any recommendations would be greatly appreciated. And that is all of the flowers that I currently have in this area here. Again, this is not an exhaustive list of what you can and can't plant. This is just what I'm planting at the moment, but I will kind of have a general guideline of things that you can and can't plant at this time period. Again, it all depends on your microclimate and yeah, where you live in the world, obviously. It's also starting to rain, so it's cool. Other things that I am growing that I don't physically have something to show you here right now, but Scott and I just the other day planted a whole bunch of cucumbers. We're planting, I think they're called long green supermarket variety, and we're planting these up one of our kind of pyramid trellises that we have. Also beans is another thing that's great to get in the ground now. I planted 2 different varieties of bush beans the other day, and that's going to be in kind of a garden with me vlog that I'll put together that'll hopefully come out after this video. It's also a good time to start your sweet corn if you've got the right microclimate for it. I'm just going to wait probably about 4 weeks to start my sweet corn, and that's because I don't have space for it right now. I need to wait for some of the other crops to finish up, and then I'll get the sweet corn in the ground. Other things I have here that I am yet to plant but will be over the next few days, I'm going to be planting some cosmos, some basil, parsley, comfrey, chamomile, and you can also start things like zucchini, pumpkins, watermelons. You have a really sunny patch where the trees are located around here. Some of those varieties are a little bit susceptible still to powdery mildew because our nights are still a little bit cooler, so that type of fungus grows really well in those conditions. So I am going to wait another few weeks before I get my zucchinis in the ground, but if you do kind of live in a position that gets full sun and really well ventilation, then that's definitely something you can plant. The other things that I have here are a few different types of tomatoes that I'm growing. I'm really holding myself back this time and not going crazy with tomatoes because I always end up with way too many seedlings and not enough space. So this season I'm growing a few different types of tomatoes, and the majority of them are determinate tomatoes. So determinate tomatoes kind of have a set size, I suppose you can describe it as, where once they hit a certain size and growth, they will stop growing and stop producing, and generally a lot of the fruit becomes ripe at the same time. Typical ones for this that grow really well in southeast Queensland are your Roma tomatoes, which is one that I have on my list here. The other one that is determinate that I'm going to be growing is the Gros Lis Yellow. I've probably butchered that name, but that's the one that I'm going to be growing. A gorgeous mid-sized yellow tomato. Such a beautiful flavour. And a semi-determinate one, which is kind of in between. It does climb and get a little bit out of control, but it also doesn't get massive like some of the other cherry tomatoes do. And this is the yellow cherry honeybee, which is a cherry tomato. These are one of the sweetest, delicious cherry tomatoes I've ever tasted, so I decided to plant that one again this year. The other kind of mid-sized tomato is Tigerella, which I just love growing it for how it looks. It is a beautiful looking tomato, doesn't get too big, so it's not as, susceptible to fruit fly that we get here in southeast Queensland. This is a climbing variety, so you do need to have a really good trellis for this and prune it, but it's something that I still really want to grow. All right, I've moved a little bit in from the rain so I can finish this video. I do have one of my massive trays here of seedlings. Something else I am growing again is sea celery. This is a native Australian herb and it's very comparable to parsley and celery. Kind of has that beautiful kind of flavour that you would expect in a lot of stocks and soups. And now's a great time to get this in the ground. It does take a little bit longer to germinate, so if you don't see it coming up within, you know, a week or two, don't worry. Sometimes it can take up to 4 weeks to grow, but that's just been my experience with this plant. I've also got my chilies and capsicums in here. So I'm growing Californian Wonder capsicum, just plain jalapenos, and another chili called black olive as well. Also decided to plant some Cape gooseberries, which I think they're also called ground cherries. So I like to plant these in a pot and then I just plant all of the seeds, and this is how I do tomatoes as well, and then I propagate them out of the one pot. These are going to go in the perennial kind of area behind you now. And the last thing that on the list that I have here is I have a lot of different pots. They don't have a label, because if I don't have a label I know what they are. Or this is the second last thing actually. There is one more thing that I am planting. These are pigeon pea. Good time to plant these if you want to start your green manure for spring. I've got a big row of these right now and they're all flowering and the pollinators are loving them. But yeah, I want to plant a lot of these around the garden so I can do chop and drop method and have my own mulch and green manure growing around where I need it. So again, I'm planting these in pots because then I can plant them exactly where I want them. And I can, you know, make sure they germinate here as well, rather than sprinkling them around the garden and hoping that the rain will do its thing, which lately it's been a little dry here. So having them all in this area just makes it a lot easier for me. And the other thing that I have here, I'm planting some Rosellas at the moment as well, which are a little tricky to germinate if it's really cool weather. So I'm putting lids and, you know, plastic, you can kind of see one down there, plastic lids over these at night so that the seeds don't get too cold and they, you know, don't germinate. But yeah, definitely get your Rosellas in now, and hopefully by summer I will have a really good Rosella harvest too. Another question I get asked sometimes is where I buy my seeds from. A lot of these seeds are from the seed collection online. Other places I get them from are Green Harvest Seeds, Boondy Seeds, and Bunnings a lot of the time. If I don't have something and I need it, I will just go to Bunnings and yeah, pick it up from there. I think wherever you can, whatever's affordable in your price range, just go for it. I'm not really too picky about where I get seeds from. I generally just make sure they at least have some kind of non-GMO varieties available, and I love to go for heirloom varieties where I can as well, as you can kind of see from a lot of my tomato choices. So down in the description box I'm going to have a broad overview of what you can get in the ground now. I hope you enjoyed being nosy and hearing what I am planting in the garden. I'm really excited to mainly just grow a lot of flowers in this next season and have designated areas where I can grow flowers for pollinators and also just for me to enjoy as well, and go and pick some from the garden so I can have on my desk and inside the house. Hopefully we'll have a lot of success with them. Let me know what you're most excited for growing in spring or autumn if you're on the other side of the world. I'd love to know, so comment in the comments down below. Definitely make sure to subscribe if you would like to follow my journey of growing flowers and growing my spring garden, and videos all about gardening and permaculture. And definitely like this video as well if you liked hearing about all these different varieties. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until my next one, happy gardening everyone. Bye.